Now, one last thing before we mirror this over, I just want to get this little piece right here. It looks like it's kind of sticking out from the back of here. So let's go to face mode with the 3 key, and then I'll press C for circle select, and I'll click and drag and paint that selection here. Now let's hit the I key to inset like this, and then we'll just hit E and extrude out like this. All right. And it looks like it's kind of curved here on the edge, so we could go to edge mode and alt-click this edge, and then we could press Control B to bevel this out and kind of curve it, but look at how it's beveling. It's kind of flat there. So once again, this is our scale, I believe. I'm going to press Control Z and tab back into object mode, and sure enough, our scale is not uniform here. So let's press Control A and apply the scale. Now we've got all ones here. Let's try this again. I'll press Control B, and now look how much cleaner that is. Yeah, that's kind of nice. So it's just more centered on that edge when we did the bevel than it was when the scale was non-uniform. All right, so now we've got a piece here that I think we can mirror over to the other side. However, I don't want to use a mirror modifier for this. What I'm going to do is use the mirror tool. It works in a similar way, but it makes it permanent right off the bat, whereas the mirror modifier is not a permanent thing, so you can still adjust one side and the other side comes along. This I feel like I'm pretty much all done with, so I'm just going to duplicate it and mirror it over. But when we do the mirror, it's going to mirror around the pivot point, and we still need to move that into the center. So what let's do, at least temporarily, let's move the 3D cursor to the center of the grid with Shift S1. And then what we'll do is change the pivot point here, the transform pivot point, from median point, or where the origin of the object is, to the 3D cursor. So there we go. Now, that doesn't move the origin of the object. That just moves how we're transforming it from this point, from the 3D cursor. So now we can duplicate this, Shift D, there it is. Now let's mirror it over with Control M, and then press the X key to mirror in the X-axis. And there it is. And then press Enter. All right. Now we've got our two pieces, one on either side, and it is actually two pieces. It is two objects. And now we can work on this piece right here. So to do that, I'll tab into Edit mode. I'm going to press the L key to select each one of these little tabs and hit delete and delete faces because we don't need those here. And now let's create this piece right here. It's kind of a four-pointed knob. So I'll tab into edit mode and just select this one point right in the center. Let's move the cursor to it, Shift S2. And now, what kind of a shape do you think we should create here? What kind of a polygon primitive should we create to begin this object? Well, I'm going to start with a cube. So let's press Control 3 to go to the left orthographic view. And let's bring in a cube. Shift A, Mesh, Cube. Let's take it down to maybe 0.1 meters. Let's scale it in the X a bit. Actually, I'll scale it down some here. Maybe let's see how big it is. I'll press the Z key and go to wireframe. And it looks like, there it is there. So we're a little bit off, but I think it's about this big here. Let's try that. And then I'm going to scale in the X. Bring it in about like this, let's say. And I will move it out until it hits right about here. So we're not going to really change anything underneath there. I don't think we need to. We could delete that area, but for now, let's just go ahead and leave that as is. And I think I'm going to try and create this shape using the bevel tool. So once again, let's apply the scale. So we have a uniform scale there. I'm going to press Control A and apply the scale. Now we have all ones. And then if we tab into edit mode and hit the 2 key to go to edge mode, I'm going to select these 4 edges right here. Let's do that. And then I'm going to press Control B to bevel the edges. And I'll pull the mouse in like this, like that. Maybe right about here, let's say. Now I can increase the number of cuts, but more importantly, I can change the shape. So if I click and drag in the shape, look at this, I can take those in like that, and now we're beginning to get that shape of that knob. So maybe I'm going to hold the shift key down to move a little slower. Maybe something about like this, let's say. Let's try that. There we go. Now I could once again increase the number here to get a cleaner curve on those. And then what I'm going to do is just select these edges here, and we're going to bevel these going in the other direction. So let's grab these and then press Control B, pull out like this, scroll the mouse wheel to reduce the number of sides there, and then I'll click and let's change the shape here to going out like that, about like this. All right, so there we go. Now I feel like that's a little too thick, so let's scale in the X just a bit like this. Something like that. Okay. And then I want to curve these edges here. I think I want to bevel this edge and this edge. Let's do that. Control B, and let's pull those in a bit like that. Yeah, let's try that. And then I want to make these right in here. And I can't really do that off of this. I'm going to have to create a new object, put it on there, and then join it together. So let's select it. I'll just select this face here, and let's move the cursor to it. Oh, I need to change back to median point. There it is. Let's press Shift S2. And then at that cursor, let's create a sphere. Let's create a sphere and use that to begin here and then extrude out to get the rim around it. I'm going to press Shift A, Mesh, and UV Sphere. And let's take this down to maybe 16 and 12. We don't need quite as many segments and rings there. Let's take the radius down to 0.1. And let's now turn it, RY90. Let's cut it in half. I'm just going to tab into edit mode. Let's press Alt-Z to be able to see through it with X-ray. And maybe I'll go to the front view here. And let's just click and drag and delete this half. Delete and delete faces. And then I'll press Alt-Z again to go out of X-ray. And let's scale this down like this. Let's flatten it in the X, SX, and I'll bring that in like that. And now let's bring it in and put it in here in the center. Maybe I'll scale it back out in the X just a little bit like that. Take that and let's bring it in right in here. Now that's a little too big. Let's scale that down. Bring it in like this, just above there like that. Maybe I'll scale it down a little more. All right, so now let's just take this, select this outer edge. Let's press ES and scale out. And then let's do that again, ES and scale out like this. And then what I'll do is just press Control R. Put that right in here. And then maybe 2 in here. And I'll select this edge, Alt-click between 2 of the faces. And now let's just pull this out some, like this. We could take this edge and bring it in some, maybe scale it in a bit, like this. We could add another edge here and pull it out, maybe, like this. Right, so we're getting that basic shape like that. All right, so let's just take this edge and maybe EX and pull it back. And there we go. Maybe it needs to be a little bit bigger. Smooth it. Here, we could try smoothing this. Yeah. And we could combine them together too. Let's take this and press Control J. There we go. We may want to use our subdivision surface modifier on that and then smooth it. So that looks a little bit better. So it just depends on what we want to do there. And a lot of these decisions are going to be made once we actually get everything in and see how we want to combine things, see what objects we're going to combine with each other to work on the materials and the texturing. But our main task now is just to get all the pieces in. And actually, now that I think about this, what I want to do is take these two pieces here and tab into edit mode. And I just want to grab that point and this point and move the cursor here, Shift S2. And then let's just create a cylinder across here. It looks like we have one here. So Shift A, Mesh Cylinder. I'll remove the cap fills here. We've got 16 sides. I think that'll be fine. RY90. Scale that down. And let's take a look at it here. Scale it down maybe about like this. And then press SX. Scale it out. Now let's take a look at it. And we could probably smooth it. And there we go. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right, so we have that front bracket. I think that's going to help us now as we try and place other things in here. Both the pieces up here and going down to the center of the front tire.